Thank you all for being here. Good morning. My name is Stephanie Sirkovich. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Seattle-King County. And again, thank you all for being here. I want to thank the candidates for being here today. Running for office is no small feat. I'm sure you're all very tired and it's a grueling campaign trail, so thank you for taking time out to meet with the League of Women Voters. I'd also like to thank some folks who really put this together today. Barbara Chevalier, our Voter Services Chair, Christy Wood, our timer, Lisa Nelson, Liz Bander, and Chelsea Jordan. There are refreshments over there. Please help yourself. The restrooms are sort of a long and winding road out to my left through this room and down a hallway. So for those of you who don't know, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. We aim to educate and engage voters throughout King County. While we don't endorse candidates, we do hold these candidate forums and we make them free to the public on a monthly basis. We ask that you support our work if you can, if you so choose. We have a donation jar in the back there, and you can also donate at seattlelwv.org. I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, who is stepping in today. I'd like to welcome Denise Smith, no relation to any of the candidates. She is a past president of the League of She's a past president of the League of Women Voters, and she is currently a volunteer nurse with the American Red Cross, and we're really happy to have her here. So thank you, Denise.
Thank you, Stephanie. The League is very pleased to be here, and once again, thank you to Aldersgate Church for giving us this facility to have this important civil and civic discussion before an important election. We are here with the candidates from the 9th Congressional District. It is the area from southeast Seattle to Redmond, Kent, Burien, and Tacoma. And if you want to see a good map, it is on page 22 of the Try our They Represent You book that the League has left on each of the seats. And that is yours. It is through 18, but on page 22 there's a great map that will give you a sense of how vast this district is. We have rules for conducting our forums and debates, and there is a copy on the back table if you need, but the key points are: it is an important civic discussion, and so please be civil, be nice. We can have applause at the beginning and applause at the end of the forum. So we'd like you to keep your comments and your applause to yourself until the end. There are no taping of this. You can take still pictures, but because we are being filmed by the, I don't have it down here. Please, I'm sorry that it's the Bellevue channel. I'm sorry. It would be, please do refrain from doing any taping or anything like that. Once again, no audience applause. There are questions that have been solicited on the League of Women Voters 411 website, and those have been compiled and sort of tightened up by the League's Voter Service Committee, and we'll be asking those. They are in 3 different ranges: global, domestic, and elections. There will be time for questions from the floor. We will compile those around a half hour into the debate. So if you have any questions, there is a little card, an index card there, and a pencil. Write it down and just raise your hand up. Somebody will come and collect those. And once again, we'll do that until about 10:30, 10:35. So when you get your questions, just do that as quietly as you can. As Stephanie said, the bathrooms are outside anytime, but just, we are being taped in as quiet as you can. And once again, also on coffee. Because of my Red Cross, if there's an emergency, there are exits right to the right out there and also here. If there were a reason that we had to exit quickly, please stay in one spot out in the far end of the parking lot so we know everybody's safe and no one's left in the building. And there is, with the questions, everyone will be given a certain amount of time, and I will state that time before we start the question. But also, if someone has a problem, one of our candidates has a problem with an answer or wants to clarify something from someone else said, they will be given, they have paddles. Somebody hold up their paddle that they can do. If they hold up this paddle, then they will be able to have, it's not a rebuttal, but they will be given one challenge throughout the whole debate. So they have one chance to use that paddle, but then they can take that to clarify for 45 seconds something that might have been said, and then the other candidate that was challenged will be given time to give a response to that as well. But it is a one-time during the debate, so you know, they'll use it judiciously, I'm sure. And then the final thing is our timer is Christy Wood. She is League of Women Voters volunteer, and she will give warnings at halftime. So each one of the questions takes a different amount of time. She will give warnings at half the time, and also at 30 seconds. And then we really would appreciate if you can close it as close to the time given. Okay. And I think that is it. So let us proceed. We have three great candidates, and I will, Doug Basser, Adam Smith, and Sarah Smith, and I will let them introduce with the first question that is 2 minutes, and is please, and we'll start with Doug Basser, please take 2 minutes to explain why you are running for office and how the 9th District and the state as a whole would benefit from your service.
Well, hey everybody, so happy to see you all here. I saw the beautiful morning and I thought, I don't think anybody's going to come, so I'm very excited to see you all. I thought we would be talking to an empty room, but that's the primary season here in Washington State. This will be my third time running for the 9th Congressional District. I'm a candidate because I believe in choices. And I believe that running for elected office should be like jury duty. I think our government was designed to be run by us. It's the government of the people, by the people, for the people. I'm a regular guy. I have a small business down in Kent. I have 5 children, all boys except for the 4 girls. I have a grandson. He's awesome. And so we added another boy to the mix. That was pretty fun. But I deeply care about one thing, and that is I care about people. And pretty much my adult life has been spent volunteering with homeless, street people. I've been a youth pastor for over 30 years. I'm not currently doing it, working with teenagers. And my personal feeling is that the most valuable thing on the planet is people. And so I'm running to give you some opportunity to have a choice. And I usually haven't done very well in percentages, but I do like the opportunity to present my side of the story. And I hope to earn your support today. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam Smith?
Well, thank you very much. I'm running for office and dedicated to public service, primarily because of this district. I've lived my entire life in the district. I grew up in SeaTac. I lived in Kent and northeast Tacoma, and now I live just, 5 minutes up the road from where we are right now. And for me, it's all about economic justice and equality of opportunity. I really believe in representative democracy, and I want to thank both Sarah and Doug for running and participating in it. We need competition and a robust debate, and at this point in the country's history in particular, we are losing that equality of opportunity. When I grew up, my father was a ramp serviceman at United Airlines, blue-collar family, literally the cliche of the first in my family to go to college, and it wasn't easy. I've worked since I was 11 years old delivering newspapers to working for United Parcel Service when I was in college, but I had an opportunity because we had a good public education system, because we had loans and grants when I went to college. My father actually passed away my second year in college, And because he was part of a union, we had decent enough benefits so I could finish college. I think we're losing that in this country. I desperately want equality of opportunity. That's why I worked hard for the $15 minimum wage in SeaTac, the city I grew up in. Very first $15 minimum wage in the country, which made a difference. I also care deeply about health care. My mother passed away actually the day before I got elected to the state senate, and it wasn't until after she died that I found out that she had stopped paying for her health care because she couldn't afford it. She didn't have health care, which meant that she wasn't taking her blood pressure medication, and she died of a stroke. We need universal access to health care. That's why I fought for the Affordable Care Act. As flawed as it may have been, 30 million people got health insurance that didn't have it before, and we had the lowest percentage of people without health care ever. Now we need to go that extra step and cover the entire country. Lastly, I have a wife and 2 children, one of whom just graduated from Issaquah High School, the other one who's a sophomore there. Their safety is paramount. And just 2 final quick issues. Climate change is an enormous threat to our country and the world. We need to fight against it. Second, gun control. I don't want my kids going to school fearing whether or not they're going to make it through the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Smith.
My name is Sarah Smith, and I'm running for this district because representation matters. Women in Congress make up less than 20% of our congressional body. People my age hold less than 5 seats in Congress, yet we're the largest voting body and we're the largest workforce in the nation. We need to have representation in office that puts people first, that says that the voice of working people, the voice of the guy sitting in traffic, the voice of the woman at the checkout stand, those voices matter. That's really important to my campaign. It's an actual cornerstone of the entire campaign that I'm running on. I don't take corporate money because I don't want to be beholden to corporations. I want to be beholden to people because people matter and people are important. And we need to stop being a district that leads from the background. We need to be a district that champions things like single-payer healthcare, that champions things like debt-free education for everybody. We need to stop riding the coattails of other progressive districts, and we need to take a stand for ourselves and take back our seat at the table. I know I'm young, but I've had a breadth of life experience. I'm a sexual assault survivor. My father's retired. He retired when I was 17, and it essentially left me houseless. So I've experienced the gamut of different things that everybody around me in this district is experiencing. I've been priced out of where I live. I've been struggling under student loan debt. I'm struggling under a mortgage. This district knows struggle. This district is struggle. I am struggle, and I am this district, and that's why I'm running to represent the 9th.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Adam Smith. It's a 2-minute question. What do you think are the 3 most important issues currently facing the United States? Of these, which is the most critical, and what action or change would you propose to positively affect the issue?
The single biggest issue facing our country, I believe, right now is economic inequality, that there is so much concentration of wealth and that there are so many people who are being priced out of the middle class. And frankly, that runs the gamut of a whole series of issues that I mentioned in the opening. What are the factors that are contributing to that? Certainly healthcare is one. And I haven't led from the background. Back in 1993, I voted for a universal access for healthcare in the state Senate. Now, we all got wiped out in the elections in '94 and the Republicans repealed it, but we did it. And I fought for the Affordable Care Act, and I continue to fight for healthcare for all. So that's a piece of it. Another piece of it is unions. Union representation. There's only 8% of the workforce now that's unionized, and the Supreme Court's trying to gut that. If it wasn't for the labor union movement in this country, I never would have had the opportunity that I want. So that's a piece of it too. But also, it's wages, it's pay. I mentioned my father. He, was a ramp serviceman at United Airlines. 30 years ago, he made almost as much money as the people at SeaTac Airport were making before we got the $15 minimum wage. I went to Bull Lake Elementary School. It is now 85% free and reduced lunch. Number one most important thing, we need middle-class jobs in this country. We need to make corporations pay their workers a decent wage. There's a whole bunch of things we need to do on that front. And yes, we need to make access to college, not just college though, workforce development. A lot of jobs out there, good paying jobs, don't require a college degree, but people don't have access to the apprenticeships, to the workforce development that they need. The federal government needs to invest in that. And I've fought for this stuff my entire career. It's where I come from. So the number one most important issue facing this country, the middle class, the working poor, need greater opportunity. I've been fighting for them my entire career, and I'm going to keep doing it.
Sarah Smith.
So I'd say the three things that are the biggest threats to our country right now are climate change, education, and campaign finance reform. And of all the legislation we talk about, we talk about things like living wage. We talk about things like getting rid of debt, student debt right now. We talk about combating climate change. None of these things are possible unless we engage in campaign finance reform and we get big money out of politics. Because until we pry off the fingers of corporations, until we get rid of corporate money and its presence at our political table, until we bring back the voice of working people into Congress, none of the legislation we want to pass is ever going to happen. We won't be able to fight climate change. We won't be able to invest in a new Green Deal. We won't be able to do things like eradicate student debt. We won't be able to fight back against big pharmaceutical companies in order to establish single-payer health care. Until we reform the way that we finance our elections and the way that we let big money affect our political system, nothing will ever change. So of the three things, I'd say those are probably the biggest, but above all of them, campaign finance reform is paramount to any other issue that we want to bring to the table and put forward.
Thank you. Doug Bassler?
I'm broke too. Adam, we love you. So the three most important issues right now, number one is our personal freedom. We are being regulated and legislated into the poorhouse. I was recently looking at my house payment, and my tax portion is basically the same as what I used to pay for my house back in the 80s, and I'm just like, this is ridiculous. But services haven't gone up, they've gone down. Security, on the other side of freedom, also the unequal application of the justice system is really a huge problem. I have a lot of friends that are African American, one of my best friends and stuff like that. They're not treated the same in the court system. You've got to have money, you've got to have influence, and you know, we see the rich, the elite, they get off, and people that can't afford it go to jail. And I think that's a huge problem, and could really be a serious problem for domestic security. Also, I believe national security is a huge issue. I think we have to secure our borders, and prosperity for everyone. I have a huge problem, like I said, with the tax burden. These two people, God bless them, they want to raise your taxes. I want to lower them. And so one of these things is not like the other. One of these things is not the same. One of these guys is a Republican. That's me. I'll tell you more about that later.
Thank you. Next question, starting with Sarah Smith. 1 minute answer. What is your position on how the United States should engage in the global economy?
The United States should engage in the global economy by putting humanitarianism and putting workers' rights first. We have the opportunity for a global workers' rights movement to start with us. We have the ability to push for worldwide, recognizing the rights of workers, recognizing the rights for them to benefit from their labor, and recognizing their ability to actually be a part of the companies that they're involved with. We live in a global economy. We must participate in that global economy in a humanitarian, holistic way that puts workers, regardless of what country they're from, first, and not bottom line CEOs and corporations.
Thank you, Mr. Bassler. Doug Bassler?
That was quick. How should the USA participate in the global economy? Well, I'll tell you, I'm definitely, excuse me. Water. The United States, I'm an American, and I love everybody, and I think everybody deserves to make good money. And I have 6 employees. Believe me, they all make more than $15 an hour. They're great at what they do. But a huge problem we have right now is the H-1B visa program is suppressing wages. We have fully 70% of STEM college graduates not working in STEM industries and STEM jobs, and it's because H-1B brings in cheap foreign labor and displaces Americans from their jobs. And that's why you have all these college graduates working at Olive Garden and Starbucks and things like that with huge college debt they can't repay. So that's our problem.
Thank you. Before we go on, sir, could you say what STEM is for the Farrell Route?
Science, technology, engineering, and math. We ready? Yes. Look, the global economy is only working for the people at the very top. And this is a debate I've been having with corporations in this country who want to vote for trade agreements. And look, we need trade agreements. 95% of the global market is outside of the U.S. We need access to those markets. But the trade agreements that have been negotiated have been good for corporations and bad for workers. Now, when I first got to Congress, you couldn't even talk about workers' rights, the environment, or human rights in a trade agreement. But I and a group of people refused to vote for CAFTA, which was the Central American Free Trade Agreement, because it didn't have these things in it. We got that reform, so at least they started putting workers' rights and environment and human rights into the trade agreements. But they didn't enforce them. And I was one of the first Democrats, first people in Congress to come out against the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Now, I'll tell you, we need the Trans-Pacific Partnership, but not the way it was being negotiated. So on this issue, I completely agree with Sarah, but I understand the issue in great detail, and I've been fighting for it for decades to push it in the right direction. And a lot of you in this room know, you've seen what I've done to fight back against the trade policies that have hurt workers in this country.
Thank you. The next question will start, thank you, with Mr. Doug Bassler. Yes. It is a 1-minute answer. Many Americans are concerned about President Trump's recent actions toward both NATO and Russia. What, if anything, should Congress do to address these concerns?
Okay, so that's a 1-minute answer. Well, Congress, the Founding Fathers intended for Congress to be the most powerful branch, and specifically the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives can impeach. The Supreme Court cannot impeach or remove a public official. Obviously, the executive branch cannot either. The Congress is charged with oversight. I believe that it's extremely important that the Congress exercises the oversight. Obviously, the Senate is the one that ratifies treaties, international treaties, things like that. But I definitely believe that all branches of government should come under the House of Representatives, and that is that's the job. That the reason it's supposed to do that is because Adam has to run every 2 years. The Congress runs every 2 years. We're supposed to be the closest to you, and this is your government and your country.
Sarah now?
Adam Smith. Yes.
Look, the biggest thing that Congress can do is speak out loudly against what Donald Trump is doing, because he has a foreign policy that is designed to promote authoritarian dictatorships at the expense of democracies. He is doing Putin's bidding. All of these international alliances like NATO, the European Union, these were Western democracies coming together and at their best, and it wasn't always at their best, promoting democracy, economic and political freedom. Donald Trump is going the exact opposite direction. Now, we have a piece of legislation that I'm working on right now to impose new sanctions on Russia, but also to back up the European Defense Initiative, to work with NATO. Basically, Congress can stand up loudly and say, we support NATO, we support the European Union, we support human rights and democracy. We do not support authoritarian, kleptocratic, I think that's the right word, dictators like Vladimir Putin. And this is spreading. It's not just in Russia, it's in Eastern Europe. They're trying to undermine our elections and undermine democracy. Trump is helping them. We need to fight back.
Thank you. Sarah Smith.
Right now, we have a megalomaniacal narcissist in the Oval Office. I think some of the best ways that Congress can help support our position with NATO is we need to come out, and similar to what Adam said, we need to come out and we need to be loud about our support for our allies. We need to step up and support our allies when our president won't. And we can do other things. We can support Mueller through his investigation, and we can start seriously addressing the possibility of impeachment, because right now our democratic process is threatened by an authoritarian dictator that's sitting in the Oval Office right now. By putting Russia and putting Putin first, by prioritizing Russia over his own intelligence agency, he's put our entire democracy at threat. And one of the best ways that we can fight back against that is have a Congress that's going to stand up and reaffirm our dedication to our allies around the world.
Thank you. The next question, we will start with Adam Smith, and it is a 1-minute question. What is your position on the role that the United States should have relative to the world order that has historically supported?
I think we have an incredibly strong role to play, and this is sort of a variation of this. I'd give a very similar answer to what I gave before. I just want to agree with one thing. I mean, impeachment is difficult because if there's one problem we have in this country that we haven't talked about yet, it's how deeply divided we are. Some of you might have, I went on Tucker Carlson the other night. Not sure I'm going to do that again, but because he just doesn't let you talk. I mean, it's like, but I want to do that. I mean, I was telling Doug when I first started my career, I made a point of going, anybody, you know, it doesn't matter, Republican, you know, conservative, whatever. We need to have a discussion. We're not having a discussion. You get into impeachment. I was there in '98 when the Republicans impeached Bill Clinton for the flimsiest of reasons. It's not helpful, but here's the problem. Trump's guilty, okay? His campaign absolutely conspired with Russian operatives to influence this election, and at a minimum, he obstructed the effort to investigate that. And I think the rule of law matters. So if we're going to stand up for the world order, it begins at home. If the rest of the world looks at us and see that we don't have order in our country, it's very hard to advocate for it internationally.
Thank you. It goes to Sarah Smith.
Right now, we exist with a reputation as a culture of violence in the world. We exist as the nation that participates in interventionist wars. We overthrow regimes. We are the ones that are first to strike. We're the ones that are known for our warrior presence in countries where we shouldn't be. So when it comes to the world order, we need to shift our perspective. We need to shift the way that we're interacting with the world around us. We need to focus our efforts on humanitarian aid. We need to build up third world countries. We need to go to the populace, and we need to make sure that we're helping build up their quality of life. We're providing things like clean water, like consistent electricity. We have the ability to step up and be a leader in humanitarian efforts, and that's where we need to reaffirm our focus, because that's the only way we're going to change that reputation as a culture of violence.
Thank you. And Doug Bass, sorry.
Thank you. So I'm not violent. I don't like it. I don't appreciate. You know, Americans are good. I know you guys. You're not out there trying to take over some small countries or whatever. I think we have some problems in leadership. I think we have some problems in our intelligence community and the military industrial complex. Was it Eisenhower that said that? But I believe that Americans are good and that we care about the world. We're the most giving nation in the world. And this idea that we're some kind of military dictatorship that goes out and tries to impose our will on everyone. I mean, we're the free, and we care, and we're giving. And you know, I believe that we need to continue that, to be the good Americans that we are, and to fight for justice and to fight for hope for every nation, and to make a difference around the world that way.
Thank you. The next question will be starting with Sarah Smith, and it is a 2-minute question. The economic recovery of the past 9 years has affected different areas of the country in markedly different ways. What policies would you propose to support or to encourage job growth and strengthen the national economy for all citizens?
I love this question. So one of the key cornerstones of my entire platform is investment in a new Green Deal. This is where we have our biggest area of opportunity. This is where we have the most potential to stimulate job growth and stimulate market growth. We have the ability to invest the $4.6 trillion that we need to in our infrastructure system. We have the ability to end oil and gas subsidies, end fossil fuel subsidies, and reinvest in green energy. For every 1 job created by the coal industry, there's 4 jobs created by the green energy industry. So when they try to sell us on the fact that, oh, coal and oil create jobs, that's tacitly not true. If we turn our focus away from listening to the corporations and lobbyists that are whispering in our representatives' ears, we'd be able to pull ourselves out of the fossil fuel industry and start focusing ourselves on green energy. But one of the biggest ways we can do that is we can also turn around and invest in our infrastructure, create good roads, revitalize downtowns, give cities the ability to build themselves up. We can couple that with a federal jobs guarantee. We can give people good paying work. We can cut out the middleman of private corporations, and we can just employ people directly to participate in these projects. That's what FDR did under the New Deal. And we have the ability to do it again and to revitalize and re-stimulate our economy. We need to seize the opportunity now while we have it.
Thank you. Next question. Oh, sorry.
Am I next? I'm sorry. I can't tell how.
No, Doug Bassler is next. Sorry about that. Yeah.
So the economic recovery under President Trump has been spectacular, and it's been the result of taking off a lot of unnecessary regulations and these types of things. I believe innovation, education, and freedom are the best ways to grow and to get better. I think America's best days are ahead of us. And I'm really excited about the fact, the strides that we made, the fact that we elected an African-American president made me super proud. You know, I had a lot of friends that are like, oh, you know, this guy's a bad guy. And I'm like, you know, let's see you get elected, big mouth. You know, I mean, come on, the guy's great. But I think we're seeing what freedom and innovation can do. The free market is how you do these things. You don't go pick winners and losers. The Solyndra debacle, you know, $500 million down the drain, you know, as we try to pick a winner and create, you know, do something. Let the free market decide. People want solar panels, but we need solar panels to be profitable. People want to, you know, drive Prius, and Prius wasn't, you know, because the government said. The Prius is just because it's awesome. It's, you know, it's a 50-mile-a-gallon electric car, right? It's the free market that does this. And so, and then again, we've got to really get rid of the guest worker visa programs. This H-1B is killing our high school and college graduates. They're way underemployed. They're not able to participate in this economy because we're bringing in cheap foreign labor, and Microsoft and Amazon and even the University of Washington are bringing in hundreds of foreign guest workers to be professors in our colleges. Come on, can't our UW graduates be professors?
Thank you. And Adam Smith.
First of all, I love you, Doug. You're running against me twice before. I don't recall you being quite so fond of President Obama in our previous two campaigns. But second of all, infrastructure, education, and healthcare. These are the things that are necessary to make this economy work for everybody. And third, this economy is not working. Donald Trump lies like most people breathe, and he stands up there and says things about the economy, about how great it is, how it's growing. Have you heard that we've got 4.8% growth in this quarter? Well, first of all, they haven't reported the growth for this quarter. Second of all, they've been steadily downgrading it. The economy is no better now than it was under President Obama, okay? And it's because Trump has invested in all the wrong things. People are falling behind. Wages for 80% of wage earners in the last year have gone down, not up. A lot of corporations, a lot of executives are making a ton of money. And now I'm going to say something to make Doug happy. Yes, I want to raise taxes. I completely agree with Sarah on infrastructure, okay? But if you don't vote for the taxes for it, Donald Trump has said he's got a $1 trillion infrastructure plan. I have voted for the gas tax, and I have voted against every single tax cut, no matter how popular they may have been during my time in Congress. And we have cut taxes on the federal level. I'm not talking about the state and local. We've got some issues there without question. But on the federal level, we have cut taxes by trillions upon trillions of dollars, and we have gutted the ability of this country to do what it needs to do to give working people a chance in this country. And every step along the way, I voted against that, no matter how popular it was. I voted for the health care bill when I had people screaming at me in what was then the old district about how terrible it was, because I wanted to protect working people. We need revenue in order to fund these things. And the last little bit of irony, the Prius, oh, that wasn't the government. It absolutely was the government, because it was the government that said you had to meet minimum fuel standards in order to get us off of our dependency on fossil fuels. The government played a huge role, and this notion the government had nothing to do with it is wrong. And lastly, I voted for cap and trade back in 2009. Now, the Senate didn't have the guts to do it, but unless we go after the fossil fuel industry, and I've had the courage to take the votes to get us to where we need to be to fulfill the vision that Sarah very accurately described.
Thank you. We'll move to the next question here, but I do need you to know I keep track of the overtime past the bell, so we'll take care of that near the end, but we are putting little marks on here in case you're wondering here. May look like a pushover, but the next question, and I've gone to a new system. We'll start with Doug Bassler, and that is, what policies, it's a 1-minute question, and what policies do you support to address rising wealth inequality?
Okay, rising wealth inequality. I mean, that's kind of a fact of, life forever. We actually fought a war and had a revolution over the idea that, these all-powerful kings and lords and ladies should own everything. And we thought that no, people should have private property. It should be their property. They should have the ability to start businesses, innovate, create. And I want everyone to have that opportunity to better themselves and to get great. Boeing started in a garage, and now it's a huge company, and now everybody gets to hate them. But and I don't think Boeing does everything right, but they employ a lot of people. And I think that the best way to do this is to keep us free and to keep the free market in place.
I've answered this question kind of, so again, I'll emphasize infrastructure, healthcare, education, and also support for unions so that we can give workers greater leverage. And also we need to go after a lot of corporate practices, including stock buybacks, which are an excuse to prop up the executives at the expense of the workers, make them invest in the company. And I'll stop there to try to buy back a little time that I went over earlier.
I'm hoarding my time. I'm kidding, I'm not. So the way that economic inequality works now, people can't buy houses. They can't have families. They can't participate in the economy, especially young people. And not just Gen X or millennials, this goes to Gen Z is slated to have the worst inequality gap of any preceding generation. And the way we do this is we have to start by ending corporate welfare programs. We must ban stock buyback programs. We must close pass-through tax loopholes. And more than that, we have to be aware of the minimum wage. $15 an hour is a great place to start, but unless we tie it into inflation, we're just passing off that battle generation after generation. We can do better for the people that are going to come next to us, that are going to come after us, and we can do better for the people that are here right now.
Before we go to the next question, if any of you have questions, this is the last call. So please write a question down and someone will pick them up. Thank you. And next questions, starting with Adam Smith. 1 minute answer. What, if anything, should the United States be doing about our increasing national deficit?
I think the fiscal problem is real. Now, I saw a study the other day that said, well, the deficits really don't matter. Long story short, they don't matter right up until they do. In the 60s and 70s, we didn't think they mattered, and then we wound up with hyperinflation and incredibly high interest rates, which crushed the middle class and the working poor. So the fact that we're $22 trillion in debt and headed towards a $1 trillion deficit this year is a big problem. And again, I'm going to start with taxes. I'm sorry, but a $2 trillion tax cut. And I always keep this stat. There are 134 Republicans who voted for the $200 trillion tax cut, for the budget deal that had a $500 billion increase, and then the very next week they voted for a constitutional amendment to balance the budget. All right? That is hypocrisy on a breathtaking scale. All right? We don't have to, and what they're doing is they're going to cut all these taxes for the very rich and then come along and say we got to cut Medicare and Medicaid. We don't. We need to have adequate revenue in this country, and we need to get to address that issue.
Thank you, Sarah Smith. Thank you.
So we need to balance our budget, right? That's the thing. Deficits, again, like Congressman Smith said, they don't matter until they do. One of the best ways we can do that is we need to employ responsible spending. We have to stop cutting corporate taxes. We have to stop letting massive stock buybacks go completely unchecked. We have to close corporate loopholes. We have to make sure that we're taxing people that are making billions of dollars off of the backs of laborers fairly. So those laborers see benefits in their community around them from those taxes that they're paying. And we need to stop allowing private corporations to be making billions of dollars off of our tax dollars. So when we do things like we go to war and we drop bombs, private companies are making money off of that. We need to rebalance our budget that stops allotting 60% of our military budget to go to private contractors. That's one of the fastest ways we're going to be able to cut spending and be more responsible with how we have our money.
Thank you, Doug Vassar.
I don't think that the main problem of the debt is the tax revenue problem. I believe it's inefficiency. Most studies that have been done, pretty much all studies that have been done on the federal government, say that you get $1 out for every $10 in. If I ran my company that way, we would have a huge problem. We wouldn't be in business. But the government can just keep raising taxes. You don't just keep giving more and more to an inefficient government that's just completely out of control, way too big. Remember, a government that's big enough to give you everything you want is also big enough to take everything you have.
Thank you. So 45 seconds.
I think this is a central issue. Doug is right. A government that does too much is bad, but we have lost a sense of balance. And the Republican Party, which is in charge of this country, basically says the government does nothing right, trashes the government day in and day out, all right? We need a balance between the private sector and the public sector. And what the Republicans have done, the joke is Republicans run for office saying government can't work, and then they get elected and prove it. We need a government that works, all right? And if we just say we're going to get rid of it, who's going to invest in the infrastructure? Who's going to do the education? Who's going to do the health care? So I just want to say a word on behalf of our government. It's got to be better. It's got to be more efficient. Both Sarah and Doug are right, and we got to keep working on that. But if our attitude is the government is the problem, we're not going to get the proper balance between the public and private sector that we need.
So I don't think our government is terrible. I think that our bureaucracies are bloated and overdone. We have many bureaucracies that actually cancel each other out. We need to go in and audit. We just need to bring good management to the government. It's one of the reasons we have this problem is, and I love you, Adam, is career politicians that get in year after year and they use the government to get reelected, unfortunately, and that's kind of the gig. I think it's time for you to elect somebody else. Pick me, pick Sarah, don't pick Adam. Adam's good, he's gonna have a great pension, he's got a nice $1 million house right up the road here. He's doing fine. Let's put somebody else in, maybe me with my ideas of management, maybe Sarah.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with Sarah. And the question is 1 minute. What is your idea of a fair and functional tax revenue system for our nation?
I think that when we look at taxes, we need to consider first and foremost working people and the middle class. Without a robust middle class, without a strong working class, without them having the ability to spend in this economy, that's where we face the biggest amount of problems. That's what's going on now. We're losing our middle class. We're taxing them out. We're wage thefting them out. We're wage stagnating them out. We're losing our middle class because of it, and our working class has less spending power and less buying power. The way that we do that is we tax corporations fairly. We close pass-through tax loopholes. I go back to stock buybacks all the time. Apple just bought back billions in stock just to falsely inflate their own stock, and we haven't done anything to curb that. We need to make sure that the wealthy and the 1% and Wall Street are paying their fair share. They're part of these communities. They take a lot of money from the backs of their laborers, and they should be paying enough in taxes for us to support those laborers that help make them more and more profit year after year.
Thank you. Mr. Vassar?
Could you repeat the question?
What is your idea of a fair and functional tax revenue system for our nation? 1 minute answer.
Okay, thank you. So the tax system as it is currently written is written basically by career politicians, lobbyists, and it benefits the very corporations that Sarah is talking about. And, you know, it's full of, you know, the tax code is gigantic. It's huge. It's thousands and thousands of pages. But we need a fair tax, a flat tax. If everybody just paid their taxes and there wasn't all these, you know, deductions and loopholes, you could just fill out your tax on a postcard, things like that. I think it would be better for all of us. The corporations wouldn't have all the loopholes, et cetera. And we would know, we'd be able to tell based on GDP what the revenue was going to be. We could budget to that. We could do it like business. We could do it like good management. And I think it would make a lot more sense.
Thanks. Well, on the question, I agree with what Sarah said about what the tax system looks like. I want to address this career politician thing a little bit because Donald Trump is our president who had no experience. I'm sorry, but it matters whether or not you know how to bring people together. As a politician, as a public servant, that's what I've done. I am connected to this district. You know, Doug likes to say that I live in a $1 million home. I don't forget where I came from, okay? I grew up in SeaTac, a blue-collar family. Those are the people who were friends with my parents, who were friends with me as a child. Those are the people that I fight for. And what my record is as a public servant is to be relentlessly connected to this district. A lot of people get elected, they move back to DC. I didn't. I've got 3.5 million miles. I spent 6.5 hours on a United Airlines flight yesterday to come home, raise my kids here. I've gone to public school here. Nobody understands this district better, and nobody will fight harder for the blue-collar people in this district because this is my life. Don't let either one of them tell you that I'm anything other than 100% connected to this district.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Doug Basser, please. And it is a 2-minute answer.
So we can talk forever?
Does someone have a phone ready? Okay. So a 2-minute, we'll start with Doug. And the question is, please speak a bit about what you believe the federal government should or should not be doing to address the state of healthcare coverage, provision, and the costs throughout the country.
Okay, the healthcare issue is fairly, is not fairly, it's very complex. It's very individualized, it's very individualistic, and to have a one-size-fits-all healthcare program that's mandated by an all-powerful, all-knowing, all-benevolent federal government is probably not the best way to do it. I think that healthcare should be handled more at the state and local level. We have 6 or 7 different components to the healthcare system. We have the private insurance market, we have VA, we have the Medicare, we have Medicaid, we have the uninsured. I mean, it's a big issue. And it's going to require a lot more attention than sort of a Band-Aid, you know, 900-page Affordable Care Act that jacked up. I was getting a prescription for psoriasis that was costing me $16 at Costco, and right after ACA went in, it went up to $500 because of the hidden taxes and all these things. And so this stuff's got to be paid for somehow. I'm not an MD. But like I said, I have kids, I have a family, I have employees. By the way, I'm not a mean employee that just wants to squeeze every dime out of my people. I love my employees, and this idea that somehow people that own businesses hate, you know, they're like our slaves or something. I mean, come on. You can't do a business without people. We need people, and we need to take care of people. But is the government always the solution? I don't think so. And, you know, one of the things, I just want to just briefly comment on career politicians. One of the things that I just want to say is that I've always really appreciated this man, and he's always been really good. And we don't agree, but this is the kind of dialogue we got to have. And I just really do appreciate that about Adam Smith.
2 minutes is nowhere near enough time, but here goes. Number one, people say we have the best healthcare system in the world. That is so wrong, it's laughable. Our healthcare system consistently ranks somewhere between 30th and 40th in terms of outcomes, and we pay more than twice as much as any other country in the world in this healthcare system. I've gone through 3 hip surgeries and more physical therapists than I care to count. We have a terrible healthcare system in this country that is not serving the people. That's number one. Number two, you want to know how to have a better healthcare system? T.R. Reid wrote a book called The Healing of America, in which he analyzed all the healthcare systems in the world. And the ones that work best are the ones in Europe. He actually picked France, Germany, and I think it was Switzerland, okay? If you don't have a universal access system, if you don't get everybody covered, you are never going to have a decent healthcare system. Insurers and healthcare providers are going to be able to take advantage of you. Now, I'm a co-sponsor of Medicare for All. That's one solution. It's a single payer system. Actually, the best healthcare systems in the world are not single payer. They're government run, but they're multiple payer. But they all have one thing in common. Everybody is covered, and there are price controls. In our country, we pay for quantity, not for quality. Why do they take so many x-rays? Why do they do so many surgeries? Why do they prescribe so many drugs? Because that's what they get paid for. It's not the best healthcare outcome. You want to know what healthcare system we need? Read T.R. Reid's book. It tells us that's what we ought to implement. And like I said, as far back as 1993, I've been fighting for exactly that type of healthcare system.
People are dying because they don't have the ability to go to the doctor. They're dying because they can't participate in preventative care. Medical bankruptcy is the leading cause of bankruptcy in our country. I've been personally affected by it. My dad almost died, and if it weren't for Medicare, he probably would have. Single payer is the best possible way forward for our healthcare system as it stands right now. It's the obligation of the government to care for the people. We talk about in our Constitution how we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and we can't say that it's enough for you to be able to breathe to satisfy those 3 things. We need to have a compassionate look at our healthcare system. All people deserve to be able to go to the doctor without worrying if they can put their kids through college after they're done. As far as doing too much, Congressman Smith is correct. I have been trying to get my left shoulder fixed forever. I've had x-rays, injections, I've had MRIs, I've had all kinds of imaging that's been done. And we both actually also have bad hips too, so I actually had a hip surgery in my right one. So I mean, our plight is the same. It's personal for us. It's a personal problem, and the only way that we can move forwards in a holistic, compassionate way is to account for everybody. Everybody in, nobody out. That's the kind of single payer system that we need in our country.
Thank you. I'm going to ask one more question from our list, which has several great ones left, and it's a 1-minute answer. We will start with Adam Smith. What specific ideas do you have to facilitate the ability of the major parties to discuss and compromise for the good of the nation?
In 1 minute.
Or
Look,
less.
the best I can do is what I do, which is, as your representative, I listen to everybody, okay? Doug and I have had debates, when it was just he and I show up, okay? I do not take this district for granted. I know that people are skeptical. So no matter who it is, me and my staff work harder than any other congressional staff in the country to show people that we're listening. And it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. I remember after I got elected to Congress, I was doorbelling just to stay in touch with people, and a woman answered the door and said, "Oh, well, I supported Randy Tate." So I said, "That's fine, but I'm your member of Congress now. Is there something I can help you with?" That's what we have to do. And yes, it means going on Tucker Carlson. And as I like to say, God help me, even Dory Monson from time to time. Okay? Engage in the debate with people who don't 100% agree with you. And I do that all the time. It's the best we can do.
So when we talk about working with Republicans and things like that, we have this divisive line that we look at. We look at left and right and blue and red, but the reality is the issues that face the people are the same. And you see it in places like Kansas, where they just had a rally with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders. It drew 4,000 people in the Midwest who were fighting for $15 an hour minimum wage, Medicare for all, debt-free education. The issues are the same no matter what side of the aisle you're at. So we need to start taking an inside-out approach. We need to have a strong progressive backbone in Congress willing to fight for these things that affect all people regardless of what party they identify with. And we also need to ensure that we're empowering grassroots organizations to work with the communities in these areas to put pressure on their incumbents and put pressure on their representatives. We need to help people be able to organize. They want to organize, they just don't know how. And we need to step up to the plate as representatives in deep blue districts and empower them to be able to do that.
Mr. Basser?
Yeah. In order to have this type of debate, to have this discussion, to be able to work together, we've got to stop calling people names. We've got to stop impugning their motives. To say that people are committing treason or that they're evil or that they're Nazis or this type of thing, it's got to stop, because, you know, if they really are Nazis, then why aren't we just going ahead and killing them, you know, or whatever? And it's really that inciting that kind of thing to violence. And so I really believe that we've got to bring the rhetoric down, stop impugning people's motives. Let's agree that we all want a better America. We all want better, safer streets. We all want better families. We want more economic opportunity, and stop calling each other names. It's one of the reasons I met with Sarah before we came in. I said, one of the things I like about the 9th is we don't do that here. And we can talk, and we don't agree on everything, but hey, let's talk, let's be friends. Just because we disagree doesn't mean we have to be disagreeable.
All right, we have... We're done, yeah. The new system isn't working either, sorry. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So Sarah, you're the next question. We have several questions from the audience. They're all really good. Some were touched on. So we've brought them down to just 3 in a little lightning rod for the very end. So we're going to, just 30 seconds, I think. It was suggested 1 minute, but, you know. So first question, we spend more than the next 9 countries combined on our military. What is your stance on this level of military spending? And what, if anything, would you how would you work to change this?
Our military spending is egregious. The most recent budget was over what President Trump was asking for. That means we gave him more money to put into the military. Part of the problem with the way we spend our military budget is over 60% goes to private contractors. It doesn't even go to our troops. So there's Representative Dorothy Gasquet is running for Congress in the 3rd. She remembers being a veteran and having to teach herself how to weld because she wasn't getting the resources she needs because we're putting too much money into the private corporations that make money off of this.
Mr. Basser?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry. Repeat the question, please.
Yes, we spend more than the next 9 countries combined on our military. What is your stance on this level of military spending, and what, if anything, would you work to do to change this?
Okay, well, we could probably prohibit military contractors from contributing, and their employees from contributing to federal campaigns, and then that would solve 2 problems. It would bring down the amount of money we need to give to the military contractors, and would also help level the playing field for congressional candidates, since Adam gets most of his money from military contractors and their families.
Couple quick things. I've voted against the defense budget since 2011 16 times, either the authorizing bill or the appropriations bill. They give me money because I serve on the Armed Services Committee. They don't give me as much as they give everybody else because I frequently vote against them. You better have a representative who's capable of voting against the people who give him or her money, no matter who it is. I've done that consistently. Very quickly on the military, I've said this over and over again, we don't need the nuclear weapons that we're about to buy. We are spending so much money on nuclear weapons, it endangers the world, wastes money. We could save hundreds of billions of dollars on that.
Next question, Mr. Basser. Much of America's, and also 30 seconds.
This is the lightning round.
Yeah. Much of America's infrastructure is aging and in need of repair. What policies would you support to maintain or improve our country's infrastructure?
Whoa. Okay. Yeah. Priorities. You know, when you're doing budgeting, and we haven't really been doing budgeting very much. We've been doing what we call continuing resolutions, just kind of keep things going. We need a budget that prioritizes things like infrastructure and defense and these types of things, and puts them in the proper order. And it needs to be, the government needs to be run by you guys, us guys, and not career politicians that use that for whatever reason, and it's my story.
That's fine. Whether you're a career politician or not, we're going to need to actually invest in infrastructure. And what this person did as a elected official, and by the way, I don't think public service is a bad thing. Okay, I don't think being willing to serve the public as an elected official is the negative that it's been portrayed as. That's what I've been willing to do. Got to vote for the revenue. I mean, we've heard about infrastructure. We need it. But the gas tax isn't bringing in what it used to, okay? So you got to be willing to vote for the taxes. I have been. And then the other point is what she said. Invest in green energy, not in oil and natural gas and fossil fuels.
So the American Society of Civil Engineers gave us a failing grade on our infrastructure. We need $4.6 trillion investment to overhaul the entire system. I also want to co-sponsor the Rebuild America Act. That's what's going to help actually put those dollars to work and start rebuilding the country. We also need to invest in public transportation and a new electrical grid focused on green energy.
And starting with Adam Smith, what are your thoughts about how to engage young people in the democratic process and increase their turnout?
Well, this is something that's near and dear to my heart. I started working on campaigns when I was 13 or 14 years old, and got elected to the state senate when I was 25, and it's something that I do. My daughter actually was very active in junior state at Issaquah High School, was the lieutenant governor for the region. So I spoke to a lot of different high schools. I think elected officials need to get out and speak to young people, go to schools. That's what I've done my whole career, and encourage them to participate. I think it is an obligation of any public official to do that.
As a young person, I think I have a lot of insight into this one. So the number one thing is not necessarily that we're not hearing from our congresspeople, it's that we feel disenfranchised. We feel like our vote doesn't matter, and we feel that way because of the infestation of corporate money in our political system. We feel that way because corporations have a bigger say, the wealthy has a bigger say than we do, so we feel like we have no control over our vote, and it doesn't matter. One of the best ways we can do that is massive sweeping campaign finance reform. We need to make sure that we're publicly financing all of our elections and giving people a say in their process.
Wow, the right to vote. I mean, people have fought and died for this. Ladies have only had it for, what, about 100 years or so. It was a key issue after emancipation. The right to vote, and to have such low voter turnout is just a huge tragedy. And we need to encourage our young people to send their ballot in. But you know what? Some of the older folks don't do it either, and it's just a tragedy. You know, to have 20-30% turnout in an election it's an insult.
I'm just going to read these three questions. Why don't we start with Sarah now? I think it would be easier to start with Doug, and if you could just go down and give a few word answer, and I know a few words for one, but as quickly as you can.
Why don't we do it like Jeopardy? You could give us the answer and we give you the question.
Yeah.
Be fun.
Yeah, it would be. I think it would take a while to get the question. Right.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll just pass it down, and then we'll reverse for the next question. So Sarah, you hold it, and we'll go back. And should the U.S. ratify the UN Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons?
No.
We should ratify we shouldn't ratify the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. We should dramatically reduce our nuclear arsenal. We can't get rid of it entirely right now, but hopefully one day we will.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
And sorry.
So the next question is, where do you get your news or information from?
I get mine from everywhere. I read CNN, Fox News, BuzzFeed. I try to have as big a breadth as I possibly can. I do local papers, I have the news alerts. I try to make sure that I have a balanced view when I look at the news, and that involves reading both sides, sometimes no matter how frustrating the blaze can be to read.
Thank you.
The same, except I also get the Seattle Times delivered to my doorstep. What can I tell you? I still like reading a newspaper.
Thank you.
What's a newspaper? Yeah, I like Fox.
Okay, and Doug, if you want to...
I saw him on Tucker. I told him he was brave. I was like, dude, I wouldn't go on there, and I'm a Republican.
Okay. Doug Vassar, if you want to start the next one. Do you think that the cost of post-secondary education is a problem that the federal government should work to address?
Wow, I think the cost of post-secondary education is a problem, but again, I'm going to come back to these guest worker visas. I'm telling you, our college graduates are getting saddled with the debt. They're getting made a promise that they're going to get these awesome jobs, and they're being displaced by foreign guest workers.
Yes, it is an enormous problem that the federal government should address. That's why I'm co-sponsor of Free College for All, not just college, as I mentioned, workforce development as well.
As somebody that just got the depressing email that my college loans came out of my bank account this morning, absolutely, I think it's a crushing problem. It's a $1.5 trillion problem right now. We need to start paying attention to it on a national scale. We need debt-free higher education. That includes college, university education, vocational school, technical school, work training programs. Whatever it is people need to get educated, we have a vested interest as a government to help them get that education.
Thank you. And why don't we start with Adam Smith and go to Sarah and Mr. Vassar. I'm going to throw in the last question here. It's a hybrid of the last question I have and the first question. So it asks, what do you consider your expertise, and what committees would you want to serve on? But you can leave that part out, but combine that with why do you think your expertise would benefit the 9th District and the state as a whole? And we'll do 1 minute each. Okay.
Very simply, I know how to bring people together, and I know this district incredibly well. And I think my experience is a great asset to this district, because first and foremost, that experience is about the people of this district. As I mentioned, I've spent 26 years in SeaTac, 7 years in Kent, 13 years in Northeast Tacoma, 6 years up here. I know this district. I am passionately committed to this district. The way I look at the world, my parents gave me so much. They gave me the opportunities that I never could have had. Regrettably, they both passed away before I was elected. But their friends, the people they grew up with, they're the people of my district. Every day, it's in the front of my mind. And I never got the chance to thank my parents for what they did for me. But if I fight for the people of their communities, then that's what I'm doing. That's what I bring to it. And also, I'm a pretty darn good legislator. And I do think that matters, all right? I know inexperience is, sorry, you're waving at me, but she's not. So, I'm sorry. I'll close on that awkward note.
They go to me? Whatever. Okay, so I'm really good at eating. I love food. I'm super good dad. I love my kids, my grandson. I'm a small business guy. I'm really good at like barely making payroll in the nick of time. And, I'm a marketing guy, and I really believe that communicating and having dialogue is the best way to come up with great solutions. I used to work for a company called Car Toys. They're a better way to go. And we had a meeting one day where we were all at a big board meeting. I was in HR, and we were having a problem that couldn't be solved. And I swear the guy that just got hired was at the table, and he goes, "Well, why don't we do this?" And we all went, "Why didn't we think of that?" So I think various perspectives and being able to communicate, we are going to come up with solutions we haven't yet even thought of and innovated yet.
Sarah.
I am a fiery and tenacious person. I'm passionate about things like education. I'm passionate about every core aspect of the platform that I'm running on. I think this is a young district. It's one of the youngest in the nation. It's important that we have a voice that recognizes what the problems are that we're facing every single day. I mean, we have a rising cost of living. We have student debt that's crushing our younger generations. It's crushing us. That we need to take charge of. And I think that my passion, I think that my tenacity, I think that my fire and my salt and my willingness to sit up here and be on this panel with people that intimidate me a little bit shows that I'm willing to stare down a challenge. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to take a chance. I'm not afraid to take a risk if I think it's the right thing to do and the moral thing to do. As far as committees, I would definitely want to sit on the budget committee because I love facts and figures and numbers, and I think that's where we can have the biggest impact for any of this kind of legislation that we want to get passed.
Thank you. Thank you. Sarah, you're the only one that doesn't have ticks here on that's in pencil mark ticks. So if you have 5 or 10 seconds to say something else.
5 or 10 seconds. Wow. It is so amazing that so many people showed up at 10 a.m. on a Saturday that is beautiful to come out here and listen to us talk to each other about policy. So really, truly, this process is made possible by all of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. It's been a great pleasure and privilege to be here. Thank you all for coming. This is really heartening to see you all here. And thank you to the League of Women Voters and to the, I want to make sure I get your name right, the Aldersgate Church. And there are still snacks and treats at the back. Thank you.